and I will shut this off again because I will distract myself. But thank you very much for having me here. As Emmanuel said, my name is Christian, and I'm here for a short visit, and I will just talk about my PhD work. So this is a brief outline of what I will talk about. Firstly, I will just present myself, who I am. Then I will present the university, the department I work for, what we do, and then talk a little bit about Greenland and mining and the relationship Greenland has with mining. And then I will move into my PhD project, what the overall goal is, and then I will introduce you to my field sites. And then I will have a short section on results because I have a lot of results, so it's difficult to cover. And then finally, I will just talk about like what I'm doing here. So yes, my name is Christian Frigaard Rasmussen. I'm 33 years old. I have a bachelor's in geosciences from Aarhus University, a master's in geology also from Aarhus University, and I did my master thesis work on aeolian deposits, so windborne deposits of loess in Svalbard in the high Arctic, where I did geochronology of these deposits, and then also like cryostratigraphy, grain size analysis, all this stuff. And I've had a variety of jobs, but right now I am working as a PhD fellow with the Department of Ecoscience at Aarhus University in Denmark. And in my free time, I really like running a lot. I do ultra long distance running. So I've been running all over Crete for the past few days. So, section for Arctic environment, who we are. So we are a collection of biologists, geographers, geologists, engineers, and we are part of the Department of Ecoscience, which is and half part of something called the DCE, which is the Danish Center for Environment and Energy. And we are slightly different than a normal university department in the sense that we actually don't teach classes at all. But what we do instead is that we provide scientific consultancy to the Greenlandic and Danish governments, mainly regarding like extraction of raw materials, environmental problems, and stuff around this. So metals, oil, gravel, all sorts of like raw materials that you can extract from Greenland. And then we also like do, as a normal university, independent research. And then another thing we also do is that we help the Greenlandic government by reviewing mining reports, so like EVAs and all this stuff like that comes with trying to set up a mine. We also help them review this stuff. So I'll just give a short overview of Greenland and mining in general, because like mining in Greenland has been going on since like the 1800s. It started off with coal mines. And then it moved into this specific mineral, which was like called it white gold in Denmark. It's called cryolite. It's the only place in the world at this mine, Ivitut, it's called, where we find this mineral as an industrial like quantity. And today it's actually industrially extinct. There's no large deposits left in the world. And it was previously used as in aluminum production as a flux. So it was highly important, especially during World War II. And there's been a lot of political stuff going on with this that I won't go into, but it was mined for many, many years in Greenland. And then we've also had mining of marble and rubies, holding a ruby right here, but this mining has been shut down. Basically, all of this is no longer ongoing. There are two active mines in Greenland currently. There's one called White Mountain, which is an anthracite mine, which is basically I guess a rock quarry. You use it in fiberglass and like construction material and stuff. And then there's a gold mine, which is an easy mine to have, right? You're just pulling money out of the ground. So it's an easy mine to establish. But there are many plans for other mines, but the path from exploration to exploitation is very long and very complicated in Greenland. And a lot of companies are trying to, but then not really willing to move in. And there's a variety of reasons for this. But you see here, for example, this is kimberlite. If you don't know, that's where you primarily find diamonds in South Africa. So like there's many opportunities for mining in Greenland. This is a geological map. You probably can't see it, but it outlines all of the deposits that are in Greenland. There's a lot of good stuff to dig out of the ground in Greenland, and especially like rare earth elements is very big in the south part of Greenland. And the Greenlandic government actually wants to use mining and raw material extraction as a way to become fully autonomous or independent from Denmark, because right now it's part of the Danish realm. So there's like also some political push to try and make mining more, a larger part of the Greenlandic economy. Yeah, and as I said, it has a long history in Greenland, but it is difficult because there lacks infrastructure. So if you want to establish a mine in Greenland, you have to build roads, you have to build airports, you have to build heliports, you have to build ports, you have to build towns, plumbing, water supply. Everything has to be built on site. There's no existing infrastructure. People primarily live in the capital, Nuuk, and then a lot of smaller villages. Then it's a very rugged environment. It's extremely cold. There's problem with permafrost. There's the wildlife. There's all sorts of stuff. And then there's the environmental thing, because like Greenland has been a part of Denmark for many years, so it has followed the environmental development of Denmark, which means there's a high degree of environmental protection in Greenland, which also is not really fun for mining companies often. And then there's a low population. Only like 50,000 people live here. So you also have to probably import workers from outside of the country into the country if you want to establish a mine. And then there was the environmental concerns talking about, and I have an example. It's something called the Uranium Act. I don't know if you've heard of it, but basically in Greenland, in the southern part of Greenland, there's the largest deposit of rare earth element oxides in the world, approximately 1 billion tons. And there was a company that wanted to mine this, but the problem was a byproduct of the mining was uranium. And then it happened that the Greenlandic people was against this because the area that it would affect is it's a place where people have summer houses. It's one of the few places in Greenland where you actually have farming and sheep and stuff. So there was like a public movement against it. You see these people demonstrating. It's Uranium. It means uranium, no thank you. And then there was an election, snap election, new government. The new government passed something called the Uranium Act, basically says you can't exploit in areas where you would have a byproduct of more than 400 ppm uranium. And then there was no mine because they passed this law. And then mining company got very, very angry because they had already sunk like billions of Danish kroner into this. So they're suing the Danish Greenlandic government for 11.5 billion United States dollars. Comparatively, the Greenlandic annual budget for the entire country is 1.4 billion. So it's more than 10 times the entire budget of the country that they're suing the country for. And this is ongoing right now. So and this of course is not a good look if you want to attract mining companies, because it makes people uncertain about how's the laws going to change? Can we be certain all the money we put in, we're going to get something out of it? Yeah. All right. So moving on to my PhD project. So it's called, as a title, Legacy Pollution from Mines in Greenland. And when we talk about legacy, what we mean is that it's basically mines that have been abandoned and the company no longer exists, which means that the responsibility of the mine and of the environmental issues goes to the state. So that's what we work with. Duration is 3 years. It's very hard limit in Denmark, so I have 3 years to finish. And the objective are to basically investigate terrestrial spread of contamination around these two different legacy mine sites. One is called Blyklippen, which is Danish and means lead rock. And the other is called Marmorlig, or Black Angel. And then we want to develop methodologies for effective collection and analysis of contamination data to aid contamination monitoring, both at these legacy mine sites, but also at current mine sites and also in future mine sites. So we can sort of have a very efficient idea of if you have a part of the mine process that's very pollutive, how can you target that specifically so you don't spend a bunch of money trying to make everything less pollutive. And it's in like fat because it's what I'm doing here. And then also one of the things I'm looking at is I'm investigating how climate change affects like leaching of metals from mine waste, basically because a lot of this stuff is permafrozen and what happens when the permafrost thaws. But I'll get into that. And then I'm going to start showing a lot of pictures and talking about some of the fieldwork we've done. So just a quick note about the fieldwork in Greenland, because you're going to see us carrying a lot of rifles around on these pictures. And it is because of this guy, which is called a musk ox, which is like a big goat. They're really, really aggressive. And also because of this guy, which is the polar bear. This is the largest land-living predator in the world. Very curious, highly aggressive, very, very big bear.
Is your camera button open here?
No, it's closed.
Please open it.
Okay.
I open again.
Okay. We're open again. So yeah, if you see us carrying a lot of guns, that's why, because we have to protect ourselves. It's the law in Greenland that we have to carry rifles when we're working in these environments. And it's the highest hunting caliber you can use in Denmark. So it's a very big caliber. So the first mine I work with is Blyklippen, lead rock. So to no one's surprise, it's a lead zinc mine. It is located on the east coast of Greenland. And so for this specific site, we had 178 individual sample sites where we sampled in depth. So we have approximately 1,000 sediment samples at various depths, and which we have done a PRXIF on, which I will get back into what PXIF is. And then we also have lichen and water samples from like strategically selected sites. This is a very interesting site because like where you see this line of purple dots, or sorry, this green dot down here in the landscape, there's an airport there. So there's an army base where there's 3 guys living year round. So that's all the people who are there in this entire area. The mine itself was active for a short amount of time. It's a small mine. It was one of the like first like proper metal mines in Greenland. 52 to 62. It was active, 550,000 tons of ore, and with 60 tons of lead and 60,000 tons of lead and 75,000 tons of zinc concentrate. And the ore itself is a sulfide lens, which is primarily consists of quartz, and then some sphalerite, some galena, and then a significant part of it is actually barite, which is a barium sulfate, and then some copper and some silver. And at this specific site, we don't really have an overview of the contamination and the spills, but we know it happened, and we also know the flotation process very well. And really funny about this site is that the mining was going on before anything was called the environment. The word didn't exist back then, right? So they didn't care at all about what they did with potential pollution. So it's everywhere. And the field work that we conduct here, like we were fortunate enough to be flown up with the Danish Air Force in a Hercules and dropped off, and we lived with these army guys. And during the summer, they actually have a chef who prepares 3 meals a day for them. So it's very like luxury. And the other half of it, we lived up in some of the old mining cabins, which you see here, which have been there since the 50s. And a lot of the field work actually happened on mountain bikes. So we would just drive these mountain bikes around that we borrowed from the army guys. And then we were just out sampling at various sites. This is the pier at the harbor itself where the on-offloading of concentrate onto barges happened. So we're sampling the entire pier in depth. We have 2 primary sources of pollution. We know from previous studies here. So we have the harbor itself, Nyhavn, which means new harbor, where we also had concentrate storage. And that's actually what I'm standing on down here are these sacks that you saw in the previous pictures, these old black and white photos. They're everywhere. It's like they would fall off trucks. They would, and then they would just slice them open and then shovel the concentrate into other sacks, and then they would just leave it. So like we have like, it's highly concentrated. It smells bad. There's diesel everywhere, jet fuel, all this sort of stuff. And the army still uses the harbor. So it's also bulldozed pretty much every second year or something. So it's like a lot of activity down there. And then the other part is the tailings deposit or the tailings storage area, which you see as this white area here. Looks like beach sand. Let's see if I can point on it. edit. So this part, so it was just basically just dumped out of the mine after the flotation, and then no cap, no constraints, nothing. It's just there, and it's actually in an active riverbed, so it's actively being eroded away into the water. And we did a section of it here, so you can see how it looks like. But it's like fine-grained beach sand, highly contaminated with lead, zinc, cadmium, barium, all of the good stuff. Yeah, so the first environmental studies of this area was 1979. So we actually have a pretty long data set, which was primarily lichen investigations and the marine environment. And then it was estimated, but the mining companies said that they had approximately placed like 400 tons of tailings in this area. And in the 80s, it was estimated that roughly 50% of it was left. The rest had been eroded away. And then a very interesting part about this area specifically that I'm very excited about as a former permafrost researcher is that we found out that part of the tailings is actually permafrozen. So we extracted permafrozen tailings with this very sophisticated setup we have here. With basically a metal pipe that we hit with a big hammer, and then we could extract these permafrozen tailings quite easily. And I'll get back to some results from that. So the other field site I have is called Black Angel Mine, or Mamorlik. Mamorlik means the place where there is marble in Greenland, because it is the old marble quarry. And then after they shut the marble quarry down, they discovered that there is a significant ore deposit of lead and zinc in the area. And you see the mining entrance, or you see why it's called Black Angel. It's because of this like black drawing on the mountain up here, which sort of look like a bird structure. And then right next to it, you see two holes, and that's the mine entrance. So it's a 1,000-meter high mountain, and 600 meters up, that's the mine entrance. And at this site, it was quite different because we knew sort of where the pollutants were, because there's no tailings in the area because the tailings was dumped in the fjord, but there is significant waste rock deposits where they would basically just, because it's an underground mine, they would drill a hole through the wall and just dump all the waste rock out. So we have these waste rock deposits that we were like targeted for sampling. And especially this one over here, which is called Tributary, is interesting because they dumped waste rock directly on a glacier, which the glacier did not like. So it has been retreating ever since because they completely messed up the thermal regime of the glacier. And yeah, so we collected 295 samples from like 194 locations, primarily sediment, but also water and lichen. And looks like this. This was very, very different than Mestasby because, or Blyklippen, because here we are basically isolated. The nearest settlement is 2 hours away by boat. So we were just tenting out here for like 16 days. We brought all of our own food. And then we hired a local guy in his boat, Aaron, who would sail us around. And we could not have done fieldwork without him because he knows the area like the back of his pants. And yeah, so basically we were just, and there's no roads, there's no path, there's no nothing. So we're just scrambling around in these like huge, waste rock piles, collecting samples, very like coarse material, sitting it in the field. And then here's our like lunch tent, or like our collective tent where we hung out at night. It was a very, very, very cool experience, but it's completely different area than the other one. So it was active. It's one of the most successful mines, except for the cryolite mine in Greenland. It was active for like 20 years. And it was pillar and room method. Ore body is like around 30 meters, maybe less, maybe more. Lens structure, pyrite, sphalerite, galena, and then a lot of carbonates because it is marble. A lot of the white stuff is marble, but then there's also fluorite and again barite. But a lot of it is like what they call shotgun ore. So basically, it looks like it's just blasted all over the place when they were mining it. Yeah, so 11.2 million tons of ore produced, 500 or 600,000 tons of lead, and 2.3 million tons of zinc. So like 10 times bigger than the other mine. And this is like a cross section of the mine. So basically, they would have a cable car going across this fjord. The cable car would be 1.3 kilometers long, going 600 meters up the mountain, carrying people one way, and then carrying the ore the other way. They would have a crusher up at the entrance, so they would directly crush it, and then their flotation plant in the mill would be down in the village here. And you see here, this is a Toyota truck that's driving around inside the mine. So it's pretty big this area, but it's a wild concept to do a mine like this. And you actually see on this picture, you see this is actually the cable car house we're standing on. And like 10 years ago, a company was actually trying to restart the mine because they thought, yeah, we could probably get some stuff out of this. So they actually installed a completely new cable car system that is ready to go. Completely new engines, everything's like still wrapped in plastic and everything's like looks beautiful. But one of the main issues they have in Greenland is like it seems like a lot of the mine sites are just sold like stock between different mining companies. So like they buy it, they develop it a little bit, then they sell it off for a profit, and then it just repeats eternally. So this is the tributary dump that I told you about before. So you have the glacier up here, and then the stuff is sort of moved down. And this is the exits, like they're frozen over because there's air moving through. So, but that's where they dumped out all the waste rock. And if you want for scale, you see down there, that's my supervisors. So it's like 1.5 million tons of waste rock in this area, just in this. Yeah. So the method we use for measurements is called PXRF. I don't know if you know it, but it's portable X-ray fluorescence. Basically, it's a gun, a hand portable gun that fires X-rays, and we shoot a soil sample with X-rays, and the X-ray will, within an atom, eject an electron, and then another electron from one of the outer orbits will move in, and this will create a secondary X-ray, and that means that the atom fluoresces, which is why it's called fluorescence, and it gives off an energy spectrum that is unique to each element. So we can measure up to 40 elements with this system. And we can do in situ measurements where we dig a hole, then in the field, we sieve it down to sub 1 millimeter. We pack it into a Ziploc bag, and then you see using the gun here, we can get we measure it for like 5 seconds because we're just looking for lead and zinc. So basically we measure, we see, okay, high lead and zinc, we move away, we measure again, high lead and zinc, move away, measure low lead and zinc. Okay, we reach the background, so we're sort of like trying to spatially put a boundary around the polluted area with this method in the field. The only issue is that it works really well with high or like heavy metals, like lead and zinc works pretty well, but the water content has a lot to say. So they're probably 20 to 25% lower than we see in the lab when we measure them in the lab. But when we do lab measurements, it's basically the same thing, except for we freeze dry them for like 76 hours. We do this instead of baking them to preserve mercury content if we want to do mercury analysis later. Then we pack them in these PRXF cups, they're called, with like a very thin layer of plastic on top. And then we just flip the XRF around and we put it in this thing, and then we measure it for 3 times 60 seconds. It has 3 beams at different energies, so it can measure like different elemental spectra with these beams. And we get up to 40 elements, as I said. And then I also conducted leaching experiment over 40 weeks. So it's 16 columns, 2 control, which are empty, and then 2 active layer tailings, which is like the non-frozen part of the tailings deposit, and then 3 of the tailings, the permafrozen tailings, and then some of the waste rock from Byklippen, and 1 kilo of material in each. And every week I would add 1 liter of molecule water. Then I would wait 24 hours. Then I would drain it, extract the water, and then wait 6 days for it to air dry, and then do it again. And then I would measure pH, conductivity, anion, and then we also did metal analysis with ICP-MS on these samples. And here are some results. Now, I'm not going to go too much into it because you can read the paper when it's done. But what we do find is that with the method, this is a PCA analysis that we made on the PXRF data. And what we do find is that we can separate the non-contaminated from the contaminated pretty easily. And it's actually also possible to separate the different source areas. So whether an environmental sample has been polluted by the harbor or it has been polluted by the tailings area at the Flugklippen site, which is quite a cool thing. And we can actually then establish like these indicator elements that we can use in the field. So for example, we see a high barium, but a high lead and zinc. We know it's polluted, but we know it comes from the tailing deposit. If we see high lead and zinc, but we see a very low barium, then we know it comes from the harbor because there's no barium in the concentrate. And then this is from Marmolik, this very early results, Black Angel, sorry. And we see there's like a slight difference between the different waste rock deposit. And then there's the one that's called Wegener Glacier, which is like background. And we see there's like sort of variation in the levels between. And then finally, here's some results from the leaching. And this is a lot of results. The only thing I want to point to, and which was the point of the entire leaching experiment, is that we see the blue line is the active layer, the non-frozen one. The red line is the bottom, the permafrozen one. What we see is that we have a massive flush in the active layer in the beginning, then it drops off to basically nothing, while the permafrozen one is kind of stable in the leaching, which means by the end of the experiment at week 40, we actually have more cumulative zinc and lead coming from the permafrozen material than the active layer stuff, which means that our original hypothesis that it is basically locked in all the contaminants and not flushed out like the active layer would be like every season is correct. Like we see a much higher reactivity in this stuff. Yes. So finally, what am I doing here? First off, I'm gonna spend 90 days on research environment change. That's the law in Denmark. So I come here for like 30 days. Thank you very much for having me. And then I had the 2 points from earlier. So, and another thing I'm doing here is finishing up my first paper together with Maria and Andreas and Manuelis. And then I'm learning also from these 3 experts all about kriging and all of these other geostatistical methods because I'm just a geologist. I don't know anything about this, so I'm very happy to learn. And that's basically it. So if you have any questions, please ask. If you want to collaborate on any of this, because we have a lot of data and we don't have a lot of people, please feel free to contact us or contact me. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Christian, for this really nice presentation, very informative. And Jess already has a question. I will leave him last.
Yes.
So thank you very much again. So I will start some questions and I'll start with the first one. I'd like to see if you would like to ask that for this time.
First of all, congratulations for the presentation.
Thank you.
There's a big discussion nowadays about how we can exploit the mineral wealth to the land. You have spent a lot of time in this area. So what do you think is the main challenges in such operations?
Okay, so I don't know if you can hear it online, but the question was, what are the main challenges in establishing mining in Greenland to make it like a good thing for for Europe, right? Yeah. The main challenges are, I think, 2. So first is the environment. Like establishing a mine in Germany, for example, is easy. You know, you have the roads, you have the people, you have the expertise, you have all this stuff. You don't have that in Greenland. You need to establish everything. And then also the people who live there don't have the experience because there is not that much mining going on right now. So you have to either educate them or bring in workers, which was like, for example, at the Black Angel site, they used to bring in Danish workers to work there. So you don't really have the exchange with local communities. You don't have money changing hands. And then the second issue, I think, is political, is that in Greenland, you really want the money from the mining, but you don't want the mess, because that's a political bad case to have. If you establish a mine and it turns out they're polluting an area, or they're destroying traditional hunting grounds, or whatever it is, that's not a very good case politically, and Greenland is a highly volatile political landscape. Like they change government all the time. I think that's the two major problems. Yeah.
Regarding the restoration of mine, because I'm working on this issue, it's also true that we don't have a large experience in developing mines, operation, such environments. So it's, in my opinion, it's also a big challenge for engineers how to design the mine and a proper sustainable mine, not just mine and then left away.
Yeah.
It's something that I think that we need more knowledge how to restore, how to reclaim the mine area in such environment. We don't have experience in such operations.
No, and I think it's the issue in Greenland at least is that there's also a lot of fighting about who's responsible.
Yeah.
So that's why you don't have cleanup operations. Like some Andreas has pointed out this multiple times. Like you could mine this stuff. Like you can extract minerals from this. So you can do it as a part of a cleanup process. You just extract whatever you want from this and then clean it up, right? But the problem is like there's an army base here. It's run by Denmark. You don't have any Greenlandic people living here, but it's technically a part of Greenland. But when they were mining, Greenland was a municipality in Denmark. It wasn't a country.
Okay.
So who has the responsibility?
Yeah.
Is it the army who uses the harbor? Is it the Greenlandic government, or is it the Danish government? Who's going to pay for cleanup operations?
Yeah.
Right. So it's just gonna be there, I guess, until.
And just a follow-up on this question from Professor Haratakis, it has to do also with the law that you follow. So in Greenland, do they follow, let's say, the Danish law, European law? They have their own.
They have their own.
They have their own.
They
Okay.
have their own mineral law
Okay.
and extraction
And
law.
is it more restrictive or it is more relaxed, let's say?
I think both at the same time. So like there's some environmental stuff which is very restrictive, but then there's other parts of the law which is much more accommodating to mining companies to try and bring them in.
You don't have soil for
Oh yeah, for example, yeah, this is a good example. In Greenland, we don't have soil quality criteria. It simply doesn't exist because there's not really a reason to have it because most of Greenland is just bare rock. So when we're working with this, we're actually using the Danish soil criteria. They're much more focused on water criteria instead of soil. So there's like also it's a big law, but there's also parts of it that's it's clearly indicative of a country that hasn't had like 300 years of experience with like making their own laws and stuff. So like there's a lot of issues in this.
Yeah, but in my eyes, during our collaboration and from our discussion, I have understood that firstly, what their priorities to clean up, if I can say that, what has been left since the 60s, 70s in the soil after the period that the melting of the ice in the area, and then to look for new mines.
Yeah.
So this is like a way that they follow.
Yeah. So the exploration part is very, very open to basically anyone to claim an area and to do the exploration. And it has traditionally been what we call two happy geologists. So like two guys will go have a claim and they will just like walk around the area, have a look at what they find, and then they will try and develop it and sell it off. So this is happening all the time.
So there are two challenges. Either the first one is to clean up what has been left in the 70s, let's say, from a primary exploitation in the area, and the second is the exploration of the next mines that they're going to operate in.
And another problem with the cleanup is that in a lot of these places, like people don't live there.
Yeah.
So like, who cares? It's also like, if you throw mine waste in the forest and no one sees it, is it really mine waste? It's like that's sort of the mentality they have.
There's no,
it's like there's no one hunting, there's no one living there. So
you said about right now we were having this discussion. You said about the people downstream that have the most plastic.
Oh yeah, there's an issue like generally with pollution in Greenland is that we have like this biomagnification, especially on the east coast of Greenland, where we actually see the highest amounts of PFAS and microplastics in people compared to anywhere in the world, primarily because they hunt and eat polar bear.
Yeah.
So it goes up the food chain and it goes into them, into the people. And so there's other problems. But the problem with that is that it's not caused by the Greenlandic people. It's caused by people in Europe, where it's like this, the streams take it up past the Greenlandic.
But it ends up there.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah.
Yeah. So it's part of the food chain.
Yeah.
And what about the wildlife that is on Greenland? Is that, I mean, they're probably impacted by the waste there, and is that being monitored or not?
I think the main impact, it's a good question. I think there was recently a study in Canada where there's a new iron mine has opened in northern Canada. And one of the things that they are very concerned about is the effect it has on narwhals. Because they would send the ore with boat in the winter when the narwhals go into these fjords, and there's like that's mostly what people have been looking at. That and birds is probably the two mostly disturbed. I don't work with this stuff specifically, so I don't. But there's something with like whales and fish and fisheries and stuff. I don't know if there's been that much study on it on terrestrial environments. Yeah.
Andreas, your turn.
So, first, I would like to.
One question only.
Congratulate you for your enthusiasm and passion. More or less about the permafrost.
Yeah.
More or less, you showed that permafrost kind of lowers the pollution movement, how much it can be dispersed. However, does that in reality help with that help us to treat it, or it traps it there, making it harder for it to move to a different place, but also harder to move away in clean?
There's two answers, and it's going to be yes and no, and depends on the material, because the tailings deposit below the tailings deposit, you have a very, very nice boundary of peat, so you can clearly see where the tailings end. So it would be very easy to just basically dig it out and then remove it. Also because you can actually, as you can see, like we could just hammer through it with an iron pipe. The problem in Black Angel's side is that the waste rock is frozen, permafrozen, and they've tried to remove it. They tried to with the explosives, basically trying to like blow it up and try to remove it, but they couldn't. Like it's very expensive, and we actually see it on the very interestingly, we actually see it on this leaching plot. The blue, this is nitrate, and the blue line is one of the places they try to glow. It has high nitrate values. It's leftovers from the explosives that they used. So like there's nitrate everywhere because like we wouldn't expect that to be. So yeah, but they didn't succeed. They couldn't remove it.
Yeah, because you shoot millions of tons, and it's more or less like mining without a profit.
Yeah.
So about the question, you said that there are 2 pages for that. Well, it's very profitable. So I guess the Greenlanders can put in the contracts that first you clean an area, and then you get a contract in the area. So something like that, because we had this discussion mentioned it. Does the harbor has indirect tasks that are 3% zinc, 4% zinc. So you can just scoop it. Also, it is already concentrated.
Yeah.
It's the concentrate. You just pick it up. So there is profit there anyway. And growth. Final question. You mentioned that the Black Angel expedition was very different than the other one. Because the other metropolitan area had 3 guys that wouldn't have that.
Yeah.
Not made all the difference.
Yeah.
Because there was somebody just 20 kilometers away.
Yeah, they were taking care of us, basically. That's the difference. Like, but the West is much more developed than the East Coast. So the next expedition we're planning is to go back to Brooklyn, Lead Rock, And you'll probably see that if we get the money for it, but
Yes.
it's
Hopefully I'm gonna be there
it's-
next year.
We call it the Wild East
My
because
wife
it's
allows.
basically just it's the Wild West. Like you know, like when we got there, the guy at the army base, he was like he showed us a map with a yellow line around the base, and he was like, whenever you're inside the yellow line, you're my problem. Whenever you're outside, I don't
It's
give a
your
crap
problem.
what you do. So it's yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thank you, Christian. Just to recap from our collaboration so far and with our discussion with also your supervisor, Christian, the other Christian, I used to call it the Christians, both of them. So for me, there are two challenges. The first one is the hotspots that they're actually located near the harbor and the
Sorry.
connection that they have to the mine.
Can you hear online?
I have opened my,
Oh, okay,
I have
good.
turned on
Sorry.
my microphone here, so I
Sorry.
think they can. So the second one also, it's very interesting from our discussion, the pollution that might have been present in the sediments near the harbor, which is not the terrestrial part, but is in the harbor part in the sediments of the water. So I have seen other works that they make a connection how they leachate actually to the sediment. So I think during the next few years we can do a lot of things and analyze the geostatistical data there and provide a integrated approach of the terrestrial part and the sediments part, and to identify these hotspots, how they have been actually. We know a bit how they've been created from the bags that have been carried from the mine towards to the port near the harbor. But there are a lot of challenges that we can identify in the area, and this is also in terms of different distances, distance metrics, as we have discussed. Instead of Euclidean metrics, you can use different kind of metrics to connect the different location sites, different sampling sites. So I'm really happy that we have this collaboration, and I'm really looking forward to visit also Greenland along with you and stay out in the wild for some days. So thank you very much for your presence here, and we're looking forward to have you again in the future. And thank you all from that you are online, and we're going to close the session here. Thank you all. I forgot to ask you if you have any questions, so I'm really sorry about that. So from the audience, do we have any questions? I have some nice messages. So no questions? Probably not. We had also some participants from Freiberg, I think. Okay, then. So I'm going to close the presentation here. Thank you very much, and stop recording. So it was really nice to have you all. Thank you for being here.